The inheritance wasn't enough. Eleanor Covington needed it all. Every brick of Covington Holdings, every share, every cent of the trust fund meant for her younger brother Leo. She watched her father, Silas, wither under the relentless assault of pancreatic cancer, a shadow of the titan who built their empire. Pity wasn't in her vocabulary. Opportunity was. While Leo, ever the trusting soul, buried himself in futile research for experimental treatments, Eleanor saw a different path to secure her future. She saw poison. Not something crude, detectable, but a subtle symphony of medications manipulated, dosages adjusted by her own hand during her nightly vigils at his bedside. A little extra here, a critical delay there, masked by the legitimate cocktail fighting the disease. She accelerated the inevitable, silencing the man who might have, in a moment of morphine-fueled clarity or misplaced paternal guilt, changed his will back in Leo's favor. And when Silas finally succumbed, gasping her name not with love, but with a dawning, terrible understanding in his fading eyes, Eleanor was ready. Documents appeared. Forged emails, fabricated financial discrepancies, painting Leo as reckless, incompetent, even embezzling from the family coffers. She wept crocodile tears at the reading of the will, the document that now named her sole beneficiary, citing Leo's supposed betrayal as the reason for his disinheritance. Leo, shattered, protested his innocence, but the evidence, meticulously crafted by Eleanor, was overwhelming. Publicly vilified, stripped of his name, his home, his future, he stood on the rain-lashed steps of the Covington mansion, watching Eleanor gaze down from their father's study window, a ghost of a smile on her lips. That was the moment Leo Covington died, and someone else began to breathe. Years bled away. Eleanor ruled Covington Holdings with an iron fist wrapped in velvet, her public persona one of grieving heiress turned formidable business leader. Philanthropy dinners, magazine covers, a carefully curated life of power and privilege. Leo vanished, not a whisper, not a trace. To the world, he was a disgraced footnote. To Eleanor, he was a problem neatly solved. She didn't know about the derelict apartment above a noisy dockside fish market, where the man who was once Leo Covington existed on instant noodles and simmering fury. He didn't just study pharmacology, he devoured it. Textbooks became his scripture. Medical journals his gospel. He dissected the coroner's report on his father's death, cross-referencing symptoms, timelines, drug interactions. He learned how Eleanor's subtle poisons worked, how they mimicked the cancer's progression. He learned forensic accounting, tracing the digital footprints of her fraud, the shell companies, the laundered funds used to create the evidence against him. He learned patience, a glacial, terrifying patience. He learned to become invisible. And he learned to cook.
Not just cook, to understand flavor profiles at a molecular level, to manipulate textures and aromas like a maestro. He apprenticed in anonymous kitchens across continents, under chefs who knew nothing of his past, only his unnerving focus and preternatural talent. He honed his body, hardened his spirit, buried Leo Covington deep beneath layers of discipline, and meticulously constructed anonymity. He emerged not as Leo, but as Gabriel Thorne, calm, impeccably mannered, possessing an almost unsettling knowledge of nutrition and elite dietary needs. His references, forged with the same meticulous care Eleanor once used against him, were flawless. When the position of personal chef and nutritionist for Eleanor Covington was advertised, a role demanding absolute discretion and expertise to manage her increasingly publicized delicate constitution and demanding schedule, Gabriel Thorne applied. His trial meal, a deceptively simple saffron-infused sea bass with a roasted vegetable medley and a molecular gastronomy-inspired essence of clarity broth, was a masterpiece. Eleanor, always suspicious, ran background checks that revealed only the impeccable facade Gabriel had built, a solitary, dedicated culinary artist with stints in exclusive European retreats. She hired him. The serpent was in the garden. Gabriel entered the gleaming, cold expanse of the Covington penthouse, a monument to Eleanor's success built on his father's grave and his own ruin. The air hummed not with warmth, but with the sterile thrum of climate control and suppressed tension. Eleanor was thinner than he remembered, her sharp features honed to a razor's edge, eyes constantly calculating, missing nothing. She outlined his duties with cold precision. Organic, locally sourced, tailored to her specific, and she stressed this, unique physiological needs. Low sodium, high antioxidants, gluten-free, dairy-free, designed to combat fatigue and maintain peak cognitive function. Gabriel, head bowed slightly, the picture of subservient professionalism, agreed. Of course, Miss Covington, optimal health through precise nutrition. It will be my sole focus. Inside, the old fury, now cold and focused as a laser, burned. Unique physiological needs, he thought? We'll see about that. He started subtly. A minute adjustment in the electrolyte balance of her morning green smoothie, designed not to harm, but to create a slight, persistent thirst. A carefully calibrated reduction in a specific B vitamin complex known to support adrenal function, masked by boosting others. He studied her like a specimen, noting the slight tremor in her hand when stressed, the shadows under her eyes she tried to conceal with expensive creams, the way she favored her left side after long hours at her desk, a relic, perhaps, of some forgotten stress injury, or maybe just the physical manifestation of her constant tension. He fed her beautifully. Exquisitely plated dishes that tasted like heaven and delivered his meticulously calculated payloads. A wild mushroom risotto infused with a barely detectable tincture known to mildly disrupt neurotransmitter reuptake, potentially amplifying anxiety. A seared duck breast with a cherry reduction containing trace elements that could, over time, interfere with iron absorption, contributing subtly to fatigue. He was composing a symphony of decline, note by imperceptible note, using the very tools of health she demanded as weapons. He also began his other work. During the quiet hours when the penthouse slept, Gabriel accessed its sophisticated network, not clumsily, but like a ghost, slipping through digital back doors he'd researched for years. He found fragments, encrypted files, offshore account trails, the digital fingerprints of the forger who'd created the documents framing Leo. He copied them, piece by painstaking piece, storing them on an encrypted drive no bigger than his thumbnail, hidden within the hollowed-out heel of his kitchen clogs.
Months bled into the penthouse's artificial light. Eleanor thrived, publicly. Covington Holdings announced record profits. She graced another magazine cover. Eleanor Covington, steel magnolia of industry. Privately, Gabriel noted the changes. The thirst became more pronounced. She snapped at her assistant, Maria, over trivialities, something the usually controlled Eleanor rarely did. The fatigue seemed deeper, harder to shake even after her mandated 8 hours of sleep monitored by a biometric ring Gabriel had subtly recommended. She complained of fleeting headaches, moments of dizziness she attributed to stress or low blood sugar. Gabriel would nod sympathetically, adjust her next meal, perhaps adding a touch more natural sugar from dates, while simultaneously introducing another minuscule variable into his complex equation. Perhaps an adaptogen blend in your evening tisane, Miss Covington, he suggested one night, presenting a steaming cup of fragrant herbal tea to help the body manage stress responses more efficiently. She accepted, unaware that the blend included a herb known to potentiate the effects of certain medications, including the beta blockers she knew she took for hypertension. The symphony was building towards its crescendo. One rainy Tuesday, a name from the past surfaced. Arthur Finchley, their father's oldest friend and former lawyer, the man who had reluctantly overseen the will that disinherited Leo. Finchley, retired and ailing himself, requested a private meeting with Eleanor. Gabriel, setting out a light lunch of poached salmon and asparagus, overheard snippets through the slightly ajar study door. Finchley's voice, frail but laced with an old man's courage. "I always had doubts, Eleanor. Silas adored Leo. Those transactions, timing was too convenient." Eleanor's response was ice. Mr. Finchley, you certified the documents. Your senility is showing. Enjoy your retirement. Maria will see you out. The door opened, revealing Finchley's ashen, heartbroken face. His eyes met Gabriel's for a fleeting second, a look of profound sadness and something else. Recognition? Gabriel froze internally, keeping his expression blandly curious, that of a servant witnessing an uncomfortable but irrelevant scene. Finchley shuffled out, a broken man. Later, clearing the untouched lunch, Gabriel found a single, old-fashioned business card tucked almost invisibly under the edge of a silver tray. Finchley's name, a personal phone number scribbled hastily on the back. A lifeline? A trap? Gabriel pocketed it, his heart hammering against his ribs. Had Finchley seen through the disguise? Did he suspect? The encounter rattled Eleanor. She became more paranoid, scrutinizing Gabriel more intensely. She demanded stricter purity in her food, more detailed sourcing reports. She installed additional security cameras in the kitchen's corners, their tiny red eyes blinking incessantly. Gabriel remained unflappable, his movements precise, his documentation impeccable. He doubled down on subtlety. The poisons weren't poisons in the traditional sense. They were enhancers of natural decline, accelerators of stress-induced damage. He targeted her cardiovascular system, her nervous system, her endocrine balance, all masked by the veneer of gourmet health food. He noticed a new symptom, a slight, occasional irregularity in her heartbeat, picked up by the biometric ring, a flutter, gone as quickly as it came, adrenaline sensitivity, Gabriel noted clinically, exacerbated by chronic stress and my little helpers. He adjusted the evening tisane blend again, adding a herb known for its mild vasodilatory effects, potentially easing the heart's workload while masking the underlying cause of the flutter. He also began the next phase of his financial assault. Using the data he had painstakingly gathered, he started constructing a digital doppelganger, a complex algorithm designed to mimic Eleanor's trading patterns, but with a fatal hidden flaw. It would take time to integrate, to nudge her automated investment strategies towards a carefully orchestrated vulnerability. He planted the first seeds, tiny anomalous trades that would look like random glitches buried in the vast ocean of Covington Holdings transactions.
The pressure mounted on Eleanor. A major deal in Singapore began to unravel due to unforeseen regulatory hurdles, hurdles Gabriel had anonymously hinted at to a rival conglomerate through an untraceable dark web channel. The board grew restless. Her physical symptoms worsened. The dizziness became more frequent, forcing her to cancel a high-profile speaking engagement. The headaches intensified. She lashed out at Gabriel one evening after a particularly exquisite meal. "This fish, Gabriel, it tasted metallic. Are you sure about the source? Are you cutting corners?" Her voice was sharp, edged with panic. Gabriel met her gaze, his own expression one of calm concern. "Absolutely not, Miss Covington. The turbot was flown in fresh from Norway this morning, certified pristine waters. Perhaps it's the stress, or maybe a new medication interaction. Have you consulted your doctor about these sensory changes?" He saw the flicker of fear in her eyes before she masked it with anger. "Just ensure it doesn't happen again." That night, Gabriel added another component to a regimen, a trace mineral complex known to sometimes cause a temporary metallic taste, perfectly aligning with her complaint. Let her doubt her own senses. Let her fear her own body. His revenge was a living thing now, growing inside her, fed by her own anxiety and his silent scientific spite. He finally dared to contact Finchley. Using a burner phone from a distant part of the city, he dialed the number. The old man's voice was weak but clear. "I wondered if you'd call, Leo." The name, spoken aloud after so long, was a physical blow. Gabriel remained silent, his knuckles white on the phone. Finchley continued, his voice thick with emotion. "I knew. Not the how, not the proof, but I knew. Silas, he would never have cut you out. Not truly. Eleanor, she changed after your mother died, became hard, desperate. I tried to find you, Leo. I tried." "Why?" Gabriel's voice, disguised slightly, rasped out the single word. "Because it was wrong," Finchley whispered. "And because Silas, in his last coherent moments, before the drugs took him completely, tried to tell me something. About Eleanor, about the medicine. He was afraid. Gabriel closed his eyes, the image of his father's terrified, accusing gaze fixed on Eleanor flooding back. "Do you have anything, proof?" Finchley sighed, a rattling sound. "No concrete proof," she altered the will, "but Silas kept a private journal, old-fashioned man. Eleanor had it destroyed after, but I have the key, a safety deposit box, downtown First National, box 714. Key is hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace of my old office building, the one Covington Holdings bought and renovated. Third floor, east corner office fireplace. If it's still there." He dissolved into a fit of coughing. "Be careful, Leo. She's dangerous." The line went dead. Proof. A tangible thread back to his father, to the truth, but retrieving it meant immense risk. Gabriel moved like a shadow. The old Covington building, now sleek corporate offices, still had the original fireplace surrounds in the preserved historical wing. Security was tight, but Gabriel knew the routines, the blind spots, knowledge gleaned from years of studying Eleanor's domain. Disguised as a janitor during the late shift, he slipped into the east corner office. The fireplace was ornate marble. His fingers, trembling slightly despite his iron control, traced the mortar. One brick, near the bottom, felt loose. He pried it gently. Behind it, gritty with dust, lay a small, tarnished brass key. He pocketed it, replaced the brick, and vanished. Days later, posing as Finchley's nephew with expertly forged ID and a convincing story about settling the old man's affairs, a story tragically aided by Finchley's sudden fatal stroke reported in the society pages, Gabriel accessed the safety deposit box. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, was Silas Covington's journal. The handwriting, once bold, became shaky towards the end. The entries were heartbreaking. Love for Leo, pride in Eleanor's drive, but concern over her coldness, worries about the company's direction. Then the final, chilling entries, scrawled in a desperate hand as the drugs and the poison took hold. E brings the pills. Tastes wrong. Bitter. She watches. Why does she watch like that? Like a spider. Feel weak. Can't breathe. Tell Leo. Tell Leo I know. She... The entry stopped mid-sentence. Physical proof. His father's dying accusation trapped on paper. Gabriel photographed every page, his hand steady, his heart a block of ice. The final piece was his.
He integrated the evidence into the digital package he'd compiled. The financial fraud trails, the forger's digital signature, the journal entries. He set intricate digital timers linked to triggers only he knew. The financial algorithm was primed, ready to execute a series of catastrophic trades in 3 weeks, timed perfectly with a major market announcement that would amplify the losses exponentially. It would look like a colossal, unprecedented failure of Eleanor's automated strategy, erasing billions. The release of the evidence package to the SEC, the FBI, Interpol, and every major news outlet was synchronized to hit precisely as Covington Holdings stock went into freefall. And coursing through Eleanor's veins, Gabriel's masterpiece was nearing completion. Her symptoms were accelerating. She developed a persistent dry cough. Her skin took on a faint sallow hue. The heart flutters became more pronounced, lasting longer. She saw specialists who ran batteries of tests, finding nothing definitive. Stress, autoimmune possibilities, need further investigation. Gabriel watched, the attentive chef, adjusting her meals with apparent concern, adding supplements for immune support that subtly intensified the biochemical chaos he'd orchestrated. He saw the fear in her eyes now, constant and gnawing. She started refusing certain foods, accusing him of sabotage with increasing hysteria, only to retract when faced with his calm logic and impeccable sourcing. She was trapped in a gilded cage, her body betraying her empire about to implode, and her most trusted servant was the architect of her ruin. The night before the financial cascade was set to begin, Gabriel prepared Eleanor's final supper under his care, a dish of deceptive simplicity and profound symbolism. Wild foraged mushrooms, perfectly safe, but reminiscent of the ones she'd used symbolically in her own subtle poisons, a delicate truffle foam, and a single perfect quail egg nestled in the center. He presented it with his usual quiet grace.
Something light yet nourishing, Miss Covington. To fortify you. She eyed the plate, then him, her gaze feverish and suspicious. Sit, she commanded abruptly, her voice raspy. Gabriel hesitated, then sat opposite her at the vast, cold dining table. You've been with me, what, 18 months now, Gabriel? She asked, picking at the mushrooms without eating. Yes, Miss Covington. And in that time, she continued, her eyes boring into his, I've gotten sicker. My company faces unprecedented challenges. Coincidence? Gabriel met her gaze evenly. The human body is complex, Miss Covington. Stress is a potent toxin in itself. As for the markets, volatility is inherent. She slammed a frail hand on the table, making the crystal shudder. Don't patronize me. Who are you, really? I've had you investigated again. Deeper. Gabriel Thorne. A ghost before you came here. Where did you come from? A cold smile touched Gabriel's lips, the first genuine expression she'd seen on his face, and it chilled her to the bone. It wasn't Gabriel smiling. It was Leo. Where did I come from, Eleanor? He asked softly, his voice dropping its carefully cultivated neutral tone, revealing an edge of the old Leo, hardened by years of bitterness. I came from the grave you tried to bury me in, the grave you dug for our father. Her face drained of all color. Recognition, stark and horrified, dawned in her widening eyes. She tried to speak, but only a choked gasp escaped her lips. She staggered back to her feet, clutching her chest, her breath coming in ragged, painful hitches. The heart monitor on her biometric ring flashed a frantic, erratic red. Leo didn't move. He watched her, the brother she'd betrayed, the ghost she'd created. How? She wheezed, collapsing back into the chair, her elegant facade crumbling into pure terror. Leo leaned forward slightly, his voice a deadly whisper. I taught you the power of patience, Eleanor.
And you taught me the power of poison, but you forgot one thing. He paused, letting the suffocating silence fill the room, broken only by her ragged, failing breaths. You forgot that vengeance tastes best when served cold and slow. Father sends his regards. He rose calmly, leaving her gasping, terrified, and utterly alone at the table, the elegant meal untouched before her. He walked towards the kitchen, not looking back. His work here was almost done. The financial avalanche would begin at market open. The evidence would flood the world, and Eleanor Covington would watch her empire crumble around her as her own body systematically failed, knowing exactly who had orchestrated it all, and knowing there was nothing, absolutely nothing, she could do to stop it. Tomorrow, the world would know her for the monster she was. Tonight, she faced the ghost of her brother and the terrifying realization that her reckoning wasn't coming. It was already here, sitting at her table, breathing her air, and poisoning her bite by exquisite bite. The final crushing weight settled on her chest, stealing her breath more effectively than any toxin. Could she possibly survive the night long enough to even witness her own downfall? Thank you for joining us for this tale of betrayal and chilling retribution. The echoes of vengeance linger. What ultimate fate awaits Eleanor Covington? Will Leo find peace, or is he forever poisoned by his own revenge? Subscribe now for tomorrow's gripping continuation and explore our library of intense family dramas where secrets fester and justice takes unexpected forms. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. Until next time,